Okay, now it's time to finish this ginormous document review of the NPD police reports that were released weeks ago, it feels like. This is now 301 to 314, and it's going to put a bow on it. It's not a lot of documents. It won't take terribly long, maybe 35 minutes, and we'll be able to finish this up, and it'll feel good to put that to rest. Now, I've been told that since I'm going to now finish this, that the unredacted versions of these documents have been posted, and I am not redoing all this, even though we spent all this time trying to guess who the names were. If it's true that all these documents that I just spent about 17 hours reviewing have now been released without the redactions, I'm not doing it all over again. I'm super busy and I'm trying to go through what I can, and I'm starting to get overwhelmed. So I need to put some structure in my life, and doing that all over again is not how you do that. So let's finish this document. And by the way, I want to point out in my last video, which I've now deleted because I screwed it up because YouTube's editing tools are horrendous. In my last video, I went on a 10-minute tirade about a software called CastViz, I think was what the name was, which was, I said, a ballistics matching software. And I was wanting to know why the hell that was in the Kohberger case when there was supposedly no gun used. Somebody wrote in my contacts that they were like, during my 10-minute rant, they were wanting to scream at the TV, "No, you've got it wrong. CastViz is cellular data." I was like, that can't be true. I looked this shit up. Well, guess what? There's a CastViz with a CAST with a capital C and a capital V, CastViz ending in an S or ending in a Z. And they're two separate softwares. I couldn't have caught that for the life of me. They're both used by law enforcement, one by law enforcement, one used by the FBI, both basically law enforcement tools. CastViz with an S is used for ballistics. CastViz with a Z is used, I think, for cell phone data. And I didn't catch the C and the S at the end, or the S and the Z, whatever. And so I spent 10 minutes ranting when somebody said, "Oh my God, you're wrong. This isn't about ballistics." And I was like, I looked it up. I even put it on the screen, and I read it to you what that software does. One little letter at the end. It even said ChatGPT when I was like, "What is this? And they're like, "Yeah, not to be confused with the other." How could you not be confused with the other when they have the same exact name and probably are pronounced the same, but just have a different letter at the end? For F's sake. Anyways, I went on and on and on for 10 minutes, and then I decided to trim just that section out of my video. And so I tried to cut the entire talk where I was ranting for 10 minutes out, and ended up somehow coming up with a 2-second video. And everybody's like, "What happened to the video? It's only 2 seconds long." And I was like, fuck it. Like, I don't know how to use the tool, apparently, editing in YouTube. I edit outside of YouTube. So I might repost that video and take out the section in Premiere that I do my editing in and repost the video, or I might just let it go and it may forever be lost to the annals of F-ups because I do that. Let's just get into it. Let's just get into it and finish this document review so that we can put it to bed. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna move some stuff to the side and bring this up on screen, blow it up a little bit bigger for you. The last of the documents, and here we go. So this is Brett Payne from August 28th, 2024, inmate transport video. On August 21st, 2024, I received an email from the Deputy Prosecutor Ashley Jennings. Wow, it's early, you can tell. Containing a link to the recent inmate transport, wherein one inmate mentioned Kohberger. Now, this gets a little disturbing in my opinion. I accessed the secure link and watched the video. So it's an inmate talking about Kohberger, right? The male inmate, by name here that's redacted, was being transported to southern Idaho and was talking to a female inmate. So it's a conversation recorded on camera. During their conversation, this inmate stated he was housed in max, or maximum security, to which so-and-so replied, "Oh, were you in there with Kohberger?" He stated he was. Then she asked, "How is he?" And he stated, "A fucking weirdo." And then continued to say if he wasn't worried about further legal repercussions, he would have physically assaulted Kohberger. And then she, I think, asked if Kohberger did it, referencing the homicides, and this person, I guess, affirmed this statement and added that he had pretty good judgment of people and that Kohberger's eyes tell a story. That was the extent of the conversation about Kohberger. So what bothers me, of course, is this. Steve Gonzalez is spending a lot of time telling us and the world and Kohberger that he's got a surprise for him waiting in prison, and that basically suggesting he's going to have have Kohberger killed or beaten up in prison. And apparently he's getting away with bragging about it all over the internet and every video that he can about how he's going to have Kohberger assaulted when he gets in there. And while I would say it's just Steve blowing smoke, here you have a recorded conversation between two inmates in which one inmate says, if I didn't think I would get in trouble, I would beat the shit out of Kohberger. So it looks like that's probably going to happen, I feel. So again, I want to make this clear because it's a super, super difficult thing. I don't want anybody to suffer. Having said that, if Kohberger killed 4 people in that house, as he said he did, then one can argue that you shouldn't have any bad feelings. If he gets his ass kicked or even killed, did he not have it coming if he did what they say he did and what, well, let's be fair, what he said he did. He said he did it, right? So if he gets his ass kicked in jail, should anybody feel bad about that? And I know that a lot of people on my channel will indeed feel bad. They were like, oh my God, they kicked his ass. It's so bad. And I get it. It's a complex human psyche thing. There are some of you out there who would feel like it would be horrible if he got his ass kicked, even if he did the things that they said he did. Some of you would be like, I don't think he did, and therefore he's getting his ass kicked for nothing, and that makes me super, super sad. I get all of those feelings. I understand them. But the only reason I'm bringing it up, regardless, and I'm not even telling you how I feel about whether or not he gets his ass kicked or killed in prison. I'm not telling you how I feel about it. I'm saying I understand how you might feel about it. I understand those emotions, and I'm not shaming you if there's a conflict in you that even if he did it, you don't want to see something horrible happen. I get it. I understand it. And enough of that. But the point being is that this document indicates for us that indeed Brian Kohberger has got rough sailing ahead. If two inmates having a personal conversation were like, hey, if I could get away with it, I'd beat the shit out of him or do something horrible to him, chances are something's going to happen because Steve Gonzalez is trying to tell us he's working that angle to get Brian Kohberger beat up in prison and or killed. And I won't be surprised if Brian Kohberger does end up killed if they don't keep him in maximum security. Him being in maximum security is probably for his own safety because somebody's going to take him out, a la Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer was assaulted, I think, with a broomstick up his butt, if you fucking want to be blunt about it, and beaten to death in prison by somebody who thought he was doing Jesus's work somehow by killing this horrible cannibal and child molester or whatever they want to label on Dahmer. The world is a very twisted place. Somebody's going to feel that God or whoever has called them to be justice for the world and to do something horrible to Kohberger. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. And I hope that that personal rant that I just made doesn't get me in trouble with YouTube because it's a little sketchy and a little brutal. But look up what happened to Dahmer. It was bad. Anyways, on Monday, September 16th, I spoke to someone. So this is a report from Brett Payne on 9/16. I usually tell you that at the beginning, and I forgot to do that. 9/16 of 2024, about an event on September 16, 2024. So I spoke to so-and-so that was an inmate at the Latah County Jail at the time and had housed next to Kohberger since August of 2024 until Kohberger's transfer to Ada County. So it was at some location prior in Latah County. So this was in the Moscow area before he was transferred down to Ada County in Boise, Idaho. So keep that in mind. So he's in Latah County Jail at this point, they're talking about an incident that happened in Moscow, Idaho's jail before transported to Boise, Idaho, because they moved him when they decided that he wouldn't get a fair trial or it would be too prejudicial to do it in the community where he's at. So they moved him to Boise in the guise of a more fair trial. Or maybe he was being moved to Boise because that's where the federal marshals were and Kohberger was in federal custody. But we'll let that go for now. All right. So the point being is, we're talking about that place. I was made aware of Detective Vargas that so-and-so spoke about Kohberger while on a phone call with his mother. So an inmate with Kohberger in Moscow at Latah County Jail is talking about Kohberger to his mother. I responded to the Latah County Jail and spoke to so-and-so. I began by asking what he thought of Kohberger having had to live next to him. He told me that Kohberger was highly intelligent and polite for the most part. So again, there's this dichotomy between a lot of people saying he's a nice person, he's respectful. Even in the plea hearing, for Pete's sake, he said, I respectfully decline to talk. As if somebody who just killed 4 people can be respectful at this point. Can you be respectful but That's what he said. I respectfully decline. There's a politeness with him. Remember when he stood up? Brian Kohberger stood up in the courthouse to do the plea, and the judge was like, I realize you're showing respect to me, but you don't need to stand up. So there's this element to Kohberger, the nice guy, the respectful guy. Or is he the animal that will go in and just completely brutalize and murder 4 people because he felt like it? So which will the real Brian Kohberger please stand up? I don't even know what to believe at this point. So anyways, he said he was intelligent and polite for the most part. So-and-so told me Kohberger would often question him about his past criminal offenses and why he was in maximum security wing of the jail. So Kohberger looks like, according to this, looks like he's just engaging in his typical interest in criminology. He's a criminology student. He wants to understand why criminals do the things they do. So he's talking to this guy. What did you do in your past crimes? How did you end up in max security? And because he's curious about criminology and criminal behavior. I asked so-and-so what he thought of Kohberger's intelligence. He stated Kohberger was the smartest person he had encountered while in confinement. Now, we know Brian Kohberger has to have some level of intelligence. He's a PhD candidate. He was considered one of the brightest PhD candidates they had. So not just a PhD candidate, but the brightest one. This individual in, I think it was DeSales, had recommended him. And she said, I never recommend, or maybe it was a he said, I never recommend somebody hardly to the PhD candidacy. In this case, I did, because he was exceptional. So he's bright. That's one thing you should understand. He's bright. This is not a dumb kid. So going back again to all the dumb things he did in this murder, if he did it, and I realize you're like, how can you keep fucking saying if he did it? He admitted to doing it a million times. We've gone over that. Point being is, if he did it, he's a smart guy. So why did he make those stupid mistakes? I don't know. Now he told me that, he told me Kohberger quickly became annoyed because of some of his habits. He told me that Kohberger would wash his hands dozens of times each day and would spend 45 minutes to an hour in the shower. Please pay attention. This is a man with OCD issues. The media made a shitstorm of a thing about the oddity of Kohberger in his parents' house in Pennsylvania before he was arrested in the middle of night, sorting trash, going through trash. We made a million craziness about his shower curtain being removed at his place, or how meticulously his car was cleaned, or his apartment was cleaned, with the idea that because it was so meticulously cleaned, Kohberger must be, or because he was going through trash, Kohberger must be, or because Kohberger was cleaning his car in Pennsylvania, Kohberger must be cleaning up evidence of a scene. And yet, if people were paying attention, they would see he's like a bit on the OCD and spectrum. He's constantly hand washing. He's constantly cleaning. He is a clean freak, a neat freak. His place is meticulous. His car is meticulous, not necessarily because he's cleaning up a crime scene, because that's the way he lives. And now he's in prison, in jail, and he's doing the same thing, washing his hands all the time, taking long showers, being very thorough and clean. Now you must ask yourself, is that the kind of person who can get themselves covered head to toe in somebody else's blood? That he could do something graphic like that and be covered in blood? Is the same kind of person who's meticulous about germs and washing and all these things be the kind of same person who will go in there and be covered head to foot in blood? I don't know. You ask me. Maybe you can. Maybe you just have to take a shower afterwards, like a really long shower. And maybe that is the photo of him smiling like, hey, I cleaned up after the mess. But one could say that a person with those kind of OCD issues might have been weirded out, freaked out about getting that messy, because it would have been messy. I don't mean to be gross. So what else did he say? I asked this person if Kohberger slept at night. He told me Kohberger would be awake almost all night and would only take a nap during the day. Oh my God. Once again, the narrative that the media posted is how strange and creepy it was that Kohberger was out driving at 3 or 4 in the morning. That is what Kohberger does. Kohberger is a night owl. He says it over and over again. Inmates say, even in jail, after everything's all done, he's in jail, in custody, and they're like, yeah, the dude's up all night long. He's a night owl. He's always been a night owl. So again, narrative shaping. The guy's a freak. He cleaned up his car to clean up evidence of a crime, and he was out late at night, so he must have murdered those girls. Him being up all night is what he does. That is what he always does. He is a night owl. That's why he was up at 2 in the morning in Pennsylvania when they arrested him. Instead of being creepy, like Brian Kohberger was up in the middle of the night. Like he always is, people. Always. Brian Kohberger is a night owl that's consistent with everybody. So this narrative shaping bullshit that he was doing something suspicious at 2 in the morning because that's who gets up at the middle. That's what they literally acted like in the media. Who would do that at that late hour? Brian Kohberger, whether he's a murderer or not, is a night owl. My wife, whether she's a murderer or not, I don't think she's a murderer. She's a night owl. She's up to 4 a.m. on a regular basis. Hope to God she doesn't ever get accused of a crime that happened around that time. They'll be like, yep, proof right there. She was up at that time. Do better. Anyways. And again, that doesn't mean that he didn't do it. I'm just saying that those things, those narrative shaping went a long ways to convince people he was guilty when he's got known OCD issues and a night owl. So, and then it says that this person complained that said he could hear Kohberger moving around all night, which annoyed them because he's a night owl. I asked this person if Kohberger ever lost his temper, and he told me on one occasion Kohberger was video chatting with his mother. This is super interesting. He's on a video chat with his mother from the jail, which he said he did for hours each day. Stop and listen to the psychological profile being built on Kohberger. He's OCD. He's a late nighter. All things we should understand, not evidence of a crime. Talks to his mom constantly, hours every single day. Oh, did you know that after the morning after the murders, he called back east to his mom and talked to his mom for hours like he does every effing day? What is narrative shaping mother? This is what I'm talking about. Media will take every little thing that is a normal thing for Brian Kohberger and say, see, something suspicious. He called his mom that morning. They will fail to mention to you, he probably calls her every morning. But it's great narrative shaping to just leave, because it's not untrue. It's not untrue. He called his mother that morning. Not untrue. Now, whether he talked to his mother or his father that morning is to be seen. But the point being is it's not untrue, but it's great narrative shaping. He called his mother that morning. Oh, shit. Let's just not mention that he calls her every fucking morning. And now from prison, he's calling his mom every morning. By the way, here's the other narrative shaping bullshit a lot of people are missing. Brian Kohberger's a sociopath. He doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself. He wouldn't care whether his family goes to jail or not. Okay, is that true? First thing he asked when he was arrested is, how are my parents and how is my dog? That's what his concern was, his parents and his dog. Now he's talking to his mama every single day from prison. So you tell me, is this still your narrative? You freaking one-sided, closed-minded people. Is that still your narrative? He's a sociopath. He has no friends. He doesn't like anybody. It's all about himself. Or is he a mama's boy and he misses his mom and he talks to his mom all the time? And when somebody might, for God's sake, might be insulting his mother, he's ready to fucking come to arms. Watch this. So he says he's telling him about this moment. He's talking to his mother, which he did every day for hours. And while he was watching sports. And so this person said, you suck, to one of the players on the team. He's watching football. Somebody dropped the ball, fumbled, whatever. He's like, you suck. Kohberger comes unglued, immediately gets up and puts his face to the bars aggressively, asked if he was talking about him or your mother or his mother. You talking about me or you talking about my mother? That's Kohberger loving his mama, right? That's Kohberger loving his mama. So is that consistent with your narrative that he's a sociopathic piece of shit who cares about no one but himself? Now, you can continue to spin the narrative all you want because that's what sells and that's what's good and it makes you sleep better at night. Or is it a very complex human being that maybe loves his mother? And one can even go, if you want to go down psychological profiles, and don't say that this is my idea. I'm just saying that there are people who are serial killers, for example, who are killers because they've got some kind of weird thing with their mother and they can't take it out on their mother, so they take it out on other people. Can't hurt mom, but I can hurt somebody else when I'm mad at mom. Those kind of things happen. I showed that in an earlier document series where some guy was going around campus who had a weird relationship with his mother, and his mother would berate him. This was related to the Idaho 4 case. I don't know if you saw that video. There was an individual, somebody said they were really concerned about. He had a big knife. He would do creepy things. He would follow girls home from school. He would basically talk about like girls on campus were sluts, and he would get berated by his mother. And then when he'd do so, he would disappear for long hours and come back the next day, nobody knowing what he was doing. Was that person in a kind of weird cycle with his mother? I can't hurt my mom. When my mom berates me and I feel belittled, I'll go kill a woman. Did that happen? Could he have been that kind of person? So people are complex. The psychological profiles can be very complex. Now, I asked if Kohberger had mentioned anything about the crimes that he was charged with. He said that Kohberger did not mention his alleged offenses at all. Now, I bring this up because I write weekly letters to Brian Kohberger, every single one of which has been returned now except for the last two, which I'm hopeful that the last two have gotten through, because I think Anyways, long story, every letter I've written. But will he talk? Will he talk to me? Probably not. Why? Because again, consistent for Bryan Kohberger is he doesn't talk about the charges at all. At all. So if somebody's like, hey, did you really do it? He's not talking. Do you want to talk about it? He's not talking. Can you tell me what you feel? Do you want to address the victims in your last moment on the victim statement? I respectfully decline. He doesn't talk about it. He's not going to talk about it. So chances are he's not going to talk about it. Was also told me that this person also told me that Kohberger was excited to move to Ada County. Excited. Bryan Kohberger has excitement. He wants to go to Ada County. He's excited about it. It's just interesting. Sociopaths, do they have a lot of emotion? Do they feel anything? Do they get excited about anything? Or do they only get excited about killing women? But he's apparently excited about moving to another prison. Maybe it's a change of pace. I know I like to change of pace. But anyways, and so he stated that he had served time. This person told Kohberger he had served time at Ada County and noted he did not think Kohberger would like it there. So just an FYI, apparently conditions at Ada County might not be as good as Latah County. All right. This document, I don't even think we have to review. I just highlighted the top. This one right here, we're going to get into this. We're almost done, people. I'm watching the time. We're going to get done in 40 minutes. I believe Brett Payne on November 11th, 2024, a couple of years after the murders. On Monday, November 11th, 2024, I was notified via an email from Sergeant Gunderson that a woman named something had called Whitcomb with information related to this case. More specifically, she alleged that she could exonerate Kohberger. So she has something that can get him, prove that he didn't do it. She hung up with the dispatch prior to them gathering further information. We knew about this. This was in a call earlier, and now there's a follow-up on it. The caller is advising that she is trying to reach the attorney for Bryan Kohberger. She was a mandated reporter /victim act advocate and is advising that she has information that would prove his innocence. Now, I don't understand that exactly. Mandated reporter /victim advocate. So I don't know what this woman does, but she claims that that's what her job is to, advocate for victims. And she said that she sent the attorney a letter, I'm assuming Ann Taylor, to reach someone that can confirm they were representing Kohberger, Attorney Ann Taylor's law office. I called this woman when I returned to duty on November 14th. I advised her, so he did have a talk. Earlier we had a thing. This woman called in, hung up. I'll follow up later. This is the follow-up. I advised her of who I was and asked if she could relate the information that she claimed to have. So on the positive side, law enforcement is, they're not ignoring somebody saying, hey, I've got proof Bryan Kohberger didn't do it. If you believe the narrative that the police had narrowly focused in on Kohberger and would only accept Bryan Kohberger, to their credit, they're following up and saying, well, let me hear you out. You claim you've got information that can prove he's innocent. So let me hear you out. Now, let's play devil's advocate with that. Does that mean that law enforcement is the good guy in this case? That they are like, hey, if you can clear him, let's clear him. Or are they more looking into the, hey, we know he's the bad guy, but we need to know what kind of shit you might pull out, trying to say that he isn't the bad guy, so we can quash that right away. I don't know what the motives are. We don't know. All we know is that the law enforcement followed up with somebody saying they could exonerate him. You can look at it in the good way, that good for them, they're at least entertaining the idea, or the bad way, that they're looking to see who they can shut the fuck up because we want to paint the narrative. Anyways. So basically, she said that she claimed that she told me that she sent a letter to Ann Taylor's office with the information and would not disclose what she knew to me. So she said, I already gave all this information that I have to exonerate Kohberger. I gave it to his attorneys. So she's not going to talk to the police. I understand people not trusting police. I get it. So she doesn't want to talk to the police about it. I advised, which is interesting because she called the police and said, I've got information that can exonerate him. Then when they called, the police called her back. She's like, I don't want to talk to you. I already told his attorney. I advised her that it was my obligation to learn of possible exculpatory evidence. That's that big word that means something that could prove that Kohberger didn't do it. She told me that she had never met Kohberger or spoken to him, but she knew he was not the person who committed the murders. I attempted to explain why it was important for me to know all of the information she had. So I guess he's trying to earn her trust. I realize you don't want to talk to law enforcement, but I need to know, I have to know, if you've got something that can prove to us he didn't do it, I need to know that. Again, why does he need to know that? Does he need to know that so they can stop going down the rabbit hole of convicting Kohberger, or does he need to do it so they can know where their problems are and cover that shit up? I don't know. I don't say cover it up as in kill somebody. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just, what is his motivation for? He needs to know what's out there. I attempted to explain why it was important for me to know what the information she had, but she would only tell me to do a FOIA request so you can learn my maiden name. So this is where you realize that she's probably not playing with the full deck or playing fair. She calls them, says she's got tips to prove that Kohberger didn't do it. When he asks what that information is, she goes, well, you can file a Freedom of Information request to find out who I am. Now you're just playing games. She also stated if I did so, if he filled out the FOIA request on her, the FBI would immediately contact him. So she's now sounding like she thinks she's some pretty hot shit. If you knew who I was, the FBI would tell you. Okay. I asked her if she had contacted the FBI, to which she replied that she had not, but they would know as soon as I searched for her name. So she's so important. It sounds like she's so important that as soon as somebody finds out who she really is, the FBI know all about her. She never contacted them, but she's so important. They know who she is, and all he has to do is look into her, and it'll all come clear. So then he said he would not. She said she did not want any further involvement and hung up. So she's done talking to the police. Based on her inability or unwillingness to offer any information, basically that call was dropped, and he never looked into it further, it sounds like. That's the gist of that call. Thought it was interesting. We spent way too long on it than I should have. Brett Payne on 12/9/2024. Let's push through this. On December 5th, 2024, I was made aware of a tip reported during this investigation. The tip contained a screenshot of a thread of comments on an Instagram post. So here we go. We're not even looking at somebody's Instagram. We're looking at a screenshot that somebody took of a thread of comments. So somebody's got Instagram on their computer. They pull up their phone and they take a shot, right? That's what I was getting. The user name, which was redacted, has posted about progress pictures for weightlifting. So they're showing themselves apparently going through, here's me at two weeks, here's me at 4 weeks, here's me at beefcake, whatever the case may be, weightlifting photos. The person by the name of such and such posted a response. So somebody responded to that sequence of weightlifting progress photos and posted a response that stated, why did you kill those kids? So now we must ask, is this Brian Kohberger? I doubt it, right? It can't be Brian Kohberger, I would think, doing the weightlifting thing, because Brian Kohberger's name wouldn't be redacted. We know who he is. Why redact his name? So I don't know. But the username, maybe it's not Brian Kohberger, or maybe it's an account someone tried to put off as being Kohberger. What I almost anticipate almost happened here is somebody took pictures of Brian Kohberger, put it online, made a fake account, and tried to post themselves as being Kohberger. And because it was not him, they're redacting the name because it's not really him. That's what I think at the end of the day, that's kind of what makes sense, but let's go through it, and maybe I'm wrong about that. So somebody posted on that series of photos, why did you kill those kids? So is it Kohberger in the picture? To which the person responded by saying, for fun. I killed those kids for fun. That's the answer. So was that Kohberger? Is that the answer? Is that the answer, people? If Kohberger did it, did he do it because he thought it would just be fun? Is it as simple as that? Now, I searched this Instagram profile and could not locate the post in question. So he's got a screenshot. Now he's looking on actual Instagram, looking to repeat that same quote. That's what's going on. He's got a screenshot. So now he goes to Instagram to find it himself. I called so-and-so on Monday, December 9th, and asked him about the post. He said that account was not his. So he finds the person who supposedly owns the account. That account's not his. So then he states that he had only had one Instagram account, this person, under the username something else that's redacted, and he rarely used it. I was able to find that profile, says the detective, which was private, and the profile photo appeared to be more closely resemble that somebody else than somebody else's account. So now it looks like somebody's using photos of somebody to make it look like there's somebody else. That's the gist I'm getting. We're spending a lot of time on something that may be a fucking never mind at the end of the day. I asked so-and-so if he ever lifted weights or posted about it. He said he has never much been into weightlifting or whatever, and stated that the such and such account was not his. So somebody used his photos, apparently, and made a fake account. I thanked him for talking to me and ended our conversation. So I don't think that was Kohberger. I don't think Kohberger's answer was, I killed those kids because I thought it would be fun. And so get that out of your head now that you've got it in your head, because I think that's not what happened. I think it's somebody trying to pose like Kohberger admitted that he wanted to kill those kids for fun. Because people do weird shit. People want their 15 minutes of fame. Brett Payne on 12/9/2024. How are we doing for time? We're about a half hour in. Okay. On Monday, December 9th, 2024, I spoke to a park ranger, so-and-so, the park ranger for such and such place. What is that place? Is it Wawaway Park? Are they looking into Kohberger's comments that he was down stargazing at Wawaway Park. Wawaway Park. Wow. Anyways, is that who it is? I don't know. It's a park ranger somewhere. I asked this park ranger if he was the park ranger in 2022, and he said he was. I asked him what his normal routine was for the park, and he told me that he would check the park numerous times a day during the summer camping season, but the frequency of checking the park would decrease as the fall season proceeded and there were fewer visitors. So murders happened in late fall, November. So yeah, he wouldn't be around much. I asked this park ranger if he remembered seeing anything suspicious surrounding the time of the homicides. He told me he lives on site at such and such and did not remember anything out of the ordinary. He told me that he would close the gate most nights, so the park closes and there's a gate that you close over, but not always, and he would not lock the gate. So it was easy for somebody to go to the park even after hours by just opening the gate that looks closed but not locked. I asked him if he was ever saw any suspicious vehicles, to include a white Elantra. He said he did not. He also told me he did not remember any suspicious people in the area. I asked if there was anything else about the time of the homicides he thought he should know. There was not. End of story. We spent too much time on a no, never mind. But it made me wonder if it was Wawaway Park that they were looking into. Now, Brett Payne, December 10th, 2024. On Friday, December 2nd, 2024, here we go. MM came into MPD and requested to speak to me in reference to a tip concerning the homicides. I spoke to M at the PD lobby. I did not record our conversation. M began by sliding me, and this is such a weird experience. M began by sliding me a note that asked if MPD was looking for a second person who could be responsible for the homicide. So this person comes in and is sitting face to face with the cop, it looks like, right? Sitting face to face with Payne, right? And as they're sitting face to face, he slides him a note, like paranoid that you're being listened to and observed on camera. That's what I'm getting. This is, again, people do weird shit. So now here comes the guys. Hey, you looking at anybody else? All right. So basically, so he says he slides him a note. The note described a male, and at the bottom it said if MPD was not looking for another person to slide the note back. And then she would leave. So this is a female that's sliding the note. It's like, hey, are you looking for somebody else? Here's a description of who I think you should be looking at. And if you're not, just slide it back and we'll just move on. I told this person that it was our duty to investigate tips and that would result in exculpatory information. She reluctantly slid me another stack of handwritten letters. So I think she doesn't want to talk about this on camera at the police station. I read most of those letters and learned that they concerned ZF, a person, M, somebody. The letters described how F had lived near the 1122 King Road residence approximately 6 months prior to the homicides and had made comments to somebody named M about how the parties kept him up at night. So basically she's showing him evidence of a disgruntled neighbor. M also wrote F had behaved strangely after the homicides and had injuries to his hands. How that is starting to get interesting. The rest of the letters concerned F, other behaviors and suspected hacking activities, according to this person. This person also stated she gave consent to her DNA kits, but submitted the reference to a past unrelated report from August of 2022 to be used. In talking with this person, I learned F's strange behavior, not talking to M for extended periods of time, showing her names at strange times, riding his scooter to Pullman, had been ongoing for several years prior to the homicides. M seemed concerned that he had psychotic tendencies and made her nervous at times. She stated that he wore gloves almost always and had wounds on his hands and face in more than one occasion, which he stated were from scooter crashes. Aside from the fact that F lived near the 1122 King Road residence, I later confirmed that he lived at such and such until June and behaved strangely. M could not have any further reason that he was a suspect as being involved. So in other words, other than the fact that he lives right nearby and has scratches, that's the only reason she thinks he could have been the killer, and she wants to know if they're looking into him. She was mostly concerned about his ongoing strange behavior. I told M if this behavior made her fear for her life that she should call 911. She said she would do so. I thanked her for her time. So, again, people around the house. Ann Taylor submitted a list of alternative suspects, people who lived near the house at 112 King Road residence, and Hitler said it can't be anybody who lives near the house because the killer arrived in a car and And so, yeah, they didn't really look into those kind of people, even with cuts and scratches on their hands, potentially having beefs with the girls. Not interested. The killer arrived in a car. So, yeah. And it couldn't have been more than one killer that came over. God dang it, man. Andrew Fox, 5/29/2025. Transfer of, this seems to be, am I wrong? Is this wrong? Jack DeCour's fingerprints? It's JD. Now, this is the part that I have a problem with. I can't prove this is Jack DeCour, so I don't want to go down a huge thing, especially if it's not Jack DeCour. But if it is Jack DeCour, here's the million thing that's interesting to me. May 25th, 2025, years after the murders. So if this is Jack DeCour and they're getting fingerprints from him years after, I don't know why they wouldn't have fingerprints on him already. That would be the problem. So is it not Jack? Is it not Jack? I don't know. Let's just read it with JD and maybe it's a different JD. Redactions suck ass. And again, maybe they've already released documents that maybe this will be the top document. I want to go back and look. Was this Jack? Were they getting his fingerprints in years after the murders? Because that's super interesting, but maybe it's not. So on May 29th, 2025, Idaho State Patrol Lieutenant Darren Gilbertson called and advised that JD was scheduled to provide fingerprints at the Idaho State Police lab in Coeur d'Alene at 1300 hours. Lieutenant Gilbertson requested that I respond to the ISP lab at that time and take custody of the fingerprints so they could be booked into evidence at Moscow Police Department and then be sent to the ISP lab in Boise. Now, is it possible JD got himself in some trouble, got himself arrested, and they were going to fingerprint JD, and so they're just letting Moscow know, hey, I know this guy may have been on your radar in Moscow for murders a couple years ago. We're booking him in and getting fingerprints. Would you like a copy of the fingerprints? I don't know. I'm trying to make heads or tails of this. I responded to the ISP lab and met with ISP staff and observed Jay providing the requested prints. The prints were sealed in an ISP envelope by ISP staff and provided to me. The chain of custody was filled out in an envelope and sealed with evidence tape. Why is this important? Because the officer here, is this Payne? No, it's Andrew Fox. The officer here is documenting chain of custody. I watched on video him giving his prints, JD, whoever it is. I watched him giving his prints, and I watched them seal it in an evidence bag with my eyes, and then I saw that I got that evidence bag untempered, chain of custody. These are indeed his prints. Why is it important to go through that meticulous thing to prove that I know this is his prints if this person is not a suspect? And I transferred the envelope back immediately to the Moscow Police Department. That whole exchange makes me really curious. All right. Only a few documents. This is taking longer than I expected, but we're almost done. Dustin Blaker, 6/2/2025. On May 22nd, 2025, I received an email from Prosecutor Bill Thompson with a request for contact for a LA. L wanted to report her daughter, EA, and one of her friends, AN, saw photos of them on Dateline from the latest special in reference to the Moscow murders. So somebody is talking about seeing their daughter on Dateline's episode. I contacted L on May 22nd, and she responded and stated that she would be available on May 23rd, but I was not able to contact her on that date. On May 29th is when he finally got a hold of her. I called L and spoke to her by phone. L told me her daughter E watched the Dateline special, and when they were talking about photos of WSU students on Brian Kohberger's phone, E was able to identify several of the photos of her and one of her friends. So they were showing how Brian Kohberger on this Dateline special was looking at pretty girls on Instagram or whatever, and so she sees this girl, sees herself, or this girl's mother says that her daughter saw herself in that picture, in those pictures, allegedly coming from Brian Kohberger's phone. All right, so that would probably concern her. And the photos were reported to have been found on Kohberger's phone. I asked if she could talk to E, and she provided her phone number. So he wants to talk to the female, the young girl, who's saying, hey, I saw my picture on allegedly on Brian Kohberger's phone on Dateline. E told me the following. E was a student at WSU in the fall and was in a class where Kohberger was the teaching assistant. So now she's saying he's got pictures of me and I was in his class. And so E was in a class with her friend, and that friend was interviewed by ISP Detective Jacob Schwenke on March 2nd. So this friend's already had an interview. E told me that she had never talked to Kohberger during class, but she did sit in close proximity to her on rare occasions, and he he would attend class. E told me that she thought Kohberger was socially awkward. There's that great thing, but was not able to provide me any other information about him. I asked how she knew the photos were of her and A, and she told me she'd watched the Dateline episode and she was able to tell the photos, which she believed had been taken off of her Instagram account. So is it photos on Kohberger's phone, or is it photos taken from the Instagram account? And did they just use it on Dateline to repurpose it? I don't know. See, that's the thing. That's the thing. Mainstream media does some shit. E told me that during 2022, her account was public, and this was possibly how Kohberger found her photos. Is it Kohberger who found her photos, or is it Dateline who found her photos? Because if you remember, I think on that same Dateline episode, they showed an Instagram account supposedly belonging to Kohberger with a note at the top of the screen that says there's no proof that this was Brian Kohberger, that Brian Kohberger ever used this account. So they might have just made that shit up. Honestly, they may have just made that shit up. Danny Vargas. Here we go. Additional Amazon purchases. Is this the last? No, I'm next to last. Additional Amazon purchases located on Kohberger's vehicle. So on June 26, 2025, long after the murders, the car is in impound and in evidence, and I searched through Kohberger's vehicle looking for the following items. Now, I find this is interesting. It's late in the game. It's years after the murders, and they're going back and deciding, hey, let's look at Kohberger's car and what's in there. Why now? Why years later? So they're looking for some Amazon purchase history that he ordered on 6/20. That's before the murders. And I previously looked up all the times in order on the order and a photo of what the products looked like. So in specific, let's just document this. So-and-so, the MPD evidence technician, unlocked the secure garage where the car is basically being stored. I took photos of the vehicle, the intact evidence seals. So he's showing that the car hasn't been tampered with. And so he's just documenting chain of custody. I'm taking a photo of the car with the seals on. I'm going to break those seals and now look into the car, and I'm going to reseal it, and I'm going to take photos again so you know who had access to this car during this time. He opened the driver's side door, opened the trunk using the trunk release valve, breaking both the driver's side door and trunk evidence seals, took photos from the trunk and items, and he's looking for certain items. What he's looking for and did not find was the following items: a ratchet handle, saving strength design for a scissor jack. So he's looking for the ratchet handle of a scissor jack. That's interesting to me. He's also looking for a heavy duty lug wrench. I find that interesting. Is there an element? People said, I hate to mention it for graphic sake, Kaylee's face was bashed in. Maybe some people said her teeth were knocked out. Steve Gonzalez said she was punched in the face. Or was she hit with, and people have said this before, was she hit with a hammer? Was she hit with a jack iron? Was she a lug wrench? Was she hit with a ratchet handle? Is that what they're looking for? Is that the second weapon? Again, they keep playing games with us. Well, you said there was a second weapon. You told the families that there was more than one weapon used in the attack. What was it? Well, we said it was a sharp-edged knife. We're sticking with that. So which one is it? It looks like to me that there was a bludgeoning element of this. And if there's a bludgeoning element, it seems to me that they're looking for that bludgeoning element, the ratchet handle or the lug wrench that may have been possibly used in the commission of this crime. But for some reason, we can't know about that. We're not allowed to know that people were bludgeoned to death. Why? What's the big secret about it? Anyways, at the bottom line is, what I thought was interesting is, while it wasn't in his car and he couldn't find it, they then looked through the evidence which had already been removed from Kohberger's vehicle when the first search in Pennsylvania happened. So there was a search of his car the first time. They looked at the evidence log of the first search, and guess what was removed from his car at that time? A ratchet handle for the scissor jack and a lug wrench. So no mystery. Those aren't missing. And I think at that point it becomes that, well, that's not the weapon because that's not true. It could be the weapon, right? It could be because it was in his car in Pennsylvania. The point being is that they were looking for these missing items that may have been used in the crime, and they found that it was already confiscated in the first search of the car. All right. And so he mentions one other item that wasn't found. I think it's a no, never mind. We're not going to deal with it. All right. Last document, and we are done, people. And again, I don't know if I'm going to repost the one video that I tried to trim out 10-minute rant on a software that I was wrong about and embarrassed myself. I don't know if we're going to repost that or just leave it. Like, this is kind of old news, right? Maybe I'll repost it if you guys ask for it. Danny Vargas on 7/9/2025. Now, this is kind of interesting. It is all about Molly McMichaels. And this is where I feel like, as we end, and I think it's a really, really fitting way to end this. This case, in a lot of ways, in my opinion, fell apart because of Molly McMichaels. I could be wrong about that, but my feeling is Molly McMichaels is where everything fell apart. Why? Because I believe Bill Thompson, who Molly McMichaels, so the prosecutor in this case, Bill Thompson, Molly McMichaels was a DoorDash driver who supposedly saw Bryan Kohberger that night at the house. Supposedly. That was the story. She's on a body cam footage in a police station or whatever. She's actually she's in a police interrogation room, holding area, in which she is seen telling a police officer, I have to testify in the case against Bryan Kohberger. I was there that night. I saw Bryan Kohberger. Yeah, I saw him. I was right next to him. She was going to testify. She was there, in my opinion, she was their ace in the hole. Molly McMichaels was going to say, I saw Bryan Kohberger at the house, because what Bill Thompson told you, which is what happened after her credibility was shot, which is that we can't place Bryan Kohberger in the house. They were going to go to trial if they could use Molly McMichael to place Bryan Kohberger at the house. And I think ultimately her alibi, her credibility, whatever you want to call it, went to shit, and Molly McMichael couldn't be used. And at the point that Molly McMichael couldn't be used, the prosecution realized, I can't place Kohberger at the house. It's a 100% circumstantial case, aside from the DNA, which we don't want to talk about because we obtained the DNA information illegally, or at least really, really, really sketchy, to the point that the jury might have a problem with it. So now I'm left with nothing but circumstantial evidence. I can't place Kohberger. Molly McMichaels was their last-ditch effort. That's how I feel, that she was their last-ditch effort. And when people out there, YouTubers, yay, YouTubers. When YouTubers did Freedom of Information FOIA requests and got copies of the body cam footage of Molly McMichaels and her interactions with police officers, and her telling a police officer, Brett Payne, I believe, telling a police officer right on the side of the road, yeah, I'm friends with Bill Thompson. We're friends. Because Bill Thompson had represented Molly McMichaels years ago when her husband was murdered, and Bill Thompson was actually basically working with her to prosecute somebody and going after the murder of her husband. They have established a relationship. She was, in my opinion, Bill Thompson's ace in the hole. I got a friend who will say, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I saw Bryan Kohberger there, so that we can seal the deal on this guy. We'll put eyewitness who said I saw Bryan Kohberger without his mask on at the house, about to walk in, and we will seal this deal. And then her credibility got shot, and they accepted a plea deal because they had nothing left but a circumstantial case. That's my take. So I just want to cover this last document. This is Danny Vargas talking about how they're pulling records and videos all about. It is game on in June 26. This is very, very, very close to the plea deal. June 26, right? Did not the plea deal happen July 1st or some shit? Like, that's what they have dated, right? It's crossed out from June. It had June on there, but it's crossed out and says July. That's when it all turned, the plea deal. Here's when it happened, in my opinion. June 26, the law enforcement and prosecution realized they have a real problem. It's come out. Molly McMichael has admitted on camera, and everybody in America is talking about it in the true crime community. Molly McMichaels is good friends with Bill Thompson. She's being pressured by prosecution to place Kohberger at the scene, and this is a shit show, and everyone knows it, and it's over. Like, their credibility is shot. Going to trial at this point is going to be pointless. They're going to have to take a plea deal because of June 26th. They're going and they're getting everything they can to see how bad is it. What is out there on Molly McMichael? So they pull Pullman records, they pull Moscow records, and they pull Whitman County Sheriff's Office records. Everything related to Molly McMichael. And we know it's Molly McMichael because they talk about it. They talk about the body cam footage from recordings from her, and about how in a video she is seen talking about having to testify. We've all seen this video. Molly McMichael is talking on video about how she has to testify in the upcoming murder trial involving 4 college girls because she's the DoorDash driver. Molly McMichael's voice is muffled, but it sounds like she says, I saw Bryan there. I parked right next to him. And again, what's not listed in this document specifically is Molly McMichael later will tell you, I'm friends with Bill Thompson. Those things became a major problem for this case. And I think their star witness, their ace in the hole, was, I'm going to place Brian Kohberger at the house with an eyewitness who saw him, and no one will question it because they saw him walk into the house. We're going to tell you all the circumstantial evidence, but the ace in the hole is Molly saw him. Molly didn't see that shit at all. Molly, her police reports have now been redacted or released with redactions, but we can still figure it out. Molly McMichaels clearly did not see Brian Kohberger. It is 100% clear she did not see Brian Kohberger, which leads me to this conclusion. My personal feeling, it's a feeling, it's my opinion, it is not fact. Molly clearly, according to the police reports, did not see Brian Kohberger. She saw somebody in a tan car, not a white Elantra. She saw somebody with blonde or maybe even red spiky hair, not brown curly hair, not big eyes, not big bushy brows, not a big nose. It wasn't fucking Brian Kohberger. She never said anywhere that she saw Brian Kohberger at all. She saw somebody else. She even saw somebody inside the house. Molly McMichael saw somebody inside the house ducking, trying not to be seen inside the house, which was a female. Molly McMichael saw everything that wasn't Brian Kohberger. She has exculpatory information. She knows somebody was in the house acting suspicious and it wasn't Brian Kohberger. She never saw Brian Kohberger there, but the prosecution was going to use her because she was a friend of Bill Thompson. They leaned on her, probably gave her a deal that said, hey, you want some of these drug charges to go away, the drunk driving, the driving while intoxicated. It wasn't drunk driving, it was driving while intoxicated because she was on painkillers, whatever. You want that shit to go away? Then testify for us and say you saw Brian Kohberger that night. And I think that's where they were going. And then all the footage came out saying, yeah, I'm good friends with Bill Thompson. And it went to shit and they took a plea. And that's how the story ends. That's how it ends.